Hi everyone, my name is Grace Namakende and I'm going to be your tutor for today. Can everyone hear me and can you see my screen?
Yes.
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 Can you see my screen that has scratch on it?
Yeah, no problem.
Yes.
You can see it.
Okay, so today we are going to learn a project called the catching game. Let me show you a demo. We're going to first start with the easy one, then later on we'll learn to make it a bit harder. So this is it. Let me maximize my screen. So we have an apple and then we have this ball. And when flag clicked, you're supposed to collect as many apples as you can. The more apples you collect, the more your score goes up. And this game is also being timed so that once the time you've been given is done, the game stops. So that's what we're going to be learning today. Let me show you. Yeah, so my time is done. I got 7 points. And you see here the timer is 0. So that's what we are going to be learning today. Let me create a new game. So you had a lesson with Martha on Monday and you learned the shooting game. Each of the tutors is going to give you a different game so that you can learn as much as you can in a short time. So Martha taught you how to name a game. You go here to this white space, then you name your game however you want to. So I'm going to name mine catching game. And by default, you always have the cat sprite. So let's delete the sprite. Remember, a sprite is an actor on the stage. This is the stage. And you get a sprite by clicking here. Choose a sprite. So remember, in our game, we had an apple. It's here. And then you go to choose sprite again. And we want a ball. Get it? So you can see that the ball is way smaller than the apple, and like a tiny ball can't collect a big apple. So you go here to size. It's the ball now. Let's make the ball bigger. Let's make it 150. See, it's much bigger. Then let's go to the apple also and make it a little bit bigger. Right now the size, you can see here the size is 100. We're going to make it, let's make it 70. See? Oh, okay, that's way too small. Let's make it 80. Yeah, there. And remember, we had a different backdrop in the demo that I showed you. So the backdrop I used is called Castle 2. This one here. So let's put that. Before I can continue, does anyone have a question? Yes, Elijah. Elijah, you may ask your question now before we continue. I want to make sure everyone that everyone understands before I move on. If you have a question, you may unmute and speak now before I continue.
And my question is, how do you make the apple and the ball move?
We are going to get to that. For now, I was just showing you how to put the sprites and the backdrop. Does anyone have a question about the sprites and the backdrop? I see Nukuri Mizero, you raised your hand. You may speak. Okay, I'm going to continue. Now let's get into moving the sprites. Okay, so let's start with the ball. Okay, let's start with the ball. So from my demo, you saw that the ball was always in this position here. You saw that the ball, if the ball is up here, that's impractical. The ball always has to be on the ground, yeah? So let's start by noting that position, and that is x is -40 and y is this. So remember, Martha told you that you use a when flag clicked to start the game, okay? So we go to events, when flag clicked, when the game starts, we want the ball to go to, so we go to the motion blocks, because motion means you're moving. Motion blocks, and we get a go to block here. So it says when flag clicked, go to here, -40, -146, even here, -40, -146. So that if you start the game and the ball is here, let's first save this project. So that if the ball is somewhere hanging in the air, when you press the flag, it first comes back down here. Okay. So since the ball is going to be on the ground the whole time, we want it to move to the left and to the right so that it can catch the apple. So let's go to control. let's go to events. Yes. So you get this block that's named when space key pressed. Let's get it out and see. So this block is it tells the ball. Remember here we are giving instructions to the ball. So it's going to tell the ball where to go, and we want it to move to the left or to the right. So according to my keyboard, I'm going to use the left arrow and the right arrow. I hope you can see those on your keyboard. So when space, you click on this small arrow here, then it will give you a drop down menu. So we want when right arrow clicked. So when right arrow clicked, what do you want to happen? You want it to move to the right by 10 steps. So you say move 10 steps, then it will give you that. So that so you can't see this, but I'm going to press on my keyboard to see. Do you see the ball moving? So that's what happens. And when I press the flag, it comes back to its original position. Okay, I want the ball to be a bit higher. So negative 36. Negative 1, a bit too high. 2, 3, 140. Negative 33. Okay, so I've showed you how it's supposed to go to the right. So it's the same thing for the left. You go to your event blocks when space key pressed, but here we are not using the space key. So you press on this small arrow and then you go. Right now we want to go to the left. So when the left arrow is clicked, what do you want to happen? You want the ball to move 10 steps. But see, when you're moving to the right, it will be 10 steps. But if you want to go to the left, it won't still be 10 steps. It will be negative 10 steps because you're going in the opposite direction. Scratch has a small aspect of math, but it shouldn't worry you. You just have to know that to the right is positive, to the left is negative. Because usually we walk in front. I think that's why it's positive to the right. And if you're going up, it will be positive. If you're coming down, it will be negative. So if we want the ball to go to the left, we won't say move 10 steps. We'll say move negative 10 steps. Then you save this. Okay,
Miss,
so
I have a
let's
question.
try. Yes, please.
So like the saying, like when the left arrow, the up arrow is clicked, what if you're using like an Android or tablet? How would that work?
Okay, we could use,
Because right now I'm on a tablet, not on the computer.
if you're using a tablet, so there is no keyboard on your tablet, yeah?
There's a keyboard on my tablet, but it's just a virtual keyboard, not a real life keyboard.
Yeah, once you tap on it, it's supposed to work. If you tap on the arrow that you mentioned here, it's supposed to work. Any kind of keyboard works really.
Okay, just want to know.
Is
Thanks.
that okay? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's move on. So we were still on the left arrow. So let's see if it works. Let me press my left arrow. We see that the ball is moving to the left. It's moving backward, if I'm to say that. And if I press on the right, it will go to the right. And here, you don't have to, okay. you don't have to always put 10 steps. 10 steps is just the default. You can put 20 steps or 15 steps, but you must know that if you increase the number of steps, then it will move much faster. So I've changed it to 40 while moving to the right. Now see, it goes much, much faster. But for the start, we want it to move slowly, so let's put it back to 10. Even here, you can just put negative, let's say 50 steps or 100 steps, whatever steps you want. So we are finished writing the code for the ball. So let's go to the apple. Okay, before we move on, does anyone have a question? I want to remind you that this meeting is being recorded and you don't have to write the code as we move along. You can rewatch it later on and you make the changes. But does anyone have a question about the code for the ball? Yes, Philippa? Okay, we're going to continue. It's now time to write the code for the apple. Also, here you don't necessarily have to use an apple. You could use any of the other sprites. I just chose an apple because, you know, we're in a castle setting and the trees and everything, it just looks appropriate. You can use any other sprite. You can even use the cat, but it would be weird to collect cats that are falling from trees. So yeah, let's just stick to the apple. So the code for the apple, let's first of all make the game start when flag clicked. So what do we want to happen? We saw from the demo that the apple was always falling from up, right? Yes. So to make this, okay, I see that you've not yet learned variables, and you saw on my screen that I had score and I had timer somewhere here. So let's first get into that. So those two tags that you saw here, those two blocks that you saw here are called variables. And don't be scared, it's not a big word. A variable just means a box where you can keep something. So you go here to my variables here, and you see there is set my variable, change my variable, show my variable, hide my variable. But for now we have no variable, so we are going to go to make a variable. And we want the variable to be named score so that it can keep, it can show you what your current score is. So we let's choose for all sprites. You don't have to worry about this for all sprites. And you see it will show up here. I hope everyone has seen what I've done. Score here. And if you don't want the score to show while you're playing your game, you could just go here to this blue tick and you disable it. You see, the score disappeared. But we want it to show while we are playing the game, so we put it back. Then we also want, oh, I went a little bit too fast. We also had the timer to show you how much time is left. So again, we go to variables, make a variable, and then we want a timer. Okay. The timer is here, the score is here. So we want the apple to constantly fall down from the trees, but we can't have the apple just falling from this position throughout the game. That would be way too easy. We want the apple to come from this side. We want it to come from this side or from the middle, as long as it's coming from up and falling down. Yeah. So we are going to go to, first of all, that will be motion because it will be coming down. Okay. So we want, when the game starts, we want the apple to be up here. So you, as Martha told you, you take the sprite to that position, then you see its X and Y coordinates here. So when flag clicked, we want the apple to go to, we want it to go to 0 and 151. But if we do that, the apple will always be here. Like it will always come from this position. But I need everyone to concentrate here, yes? So we want the apple to come from up and fall down. And we want it to always come from up, from the same position up. And we got that position as Y being 151, and it's the same here. But remember, Y is the vertical position, right? But we want the apple to come from the same place, from the same height, but at different points. We want it to come from here and fall down. We also want it to come from here and fall down, and from here and fall down. Okay? So when the flag is clicked, we want the apple to go to. So we have seen that we want the same Y position as 151, but we want a different horizontal position, a different X position. So we need the value of X to change throughout the game. Yes. So we are going to go to what is called operators. And you see we have plus, minus, multiplication, division. So we are going to pick this block that's called pick random. And we want the X position to be a random value. And the extremes of this canvas are, so let's say we want it to pick random from negative 200 to positive 200. Remember, I told you that when you're moving to the right, it's positive. When you're moving to the left, it's negative. So we want it to come from this extreme negative value to all the way to the positive extreme value. That's why I've said pick random from negative 200 to positive 200. So you get this block and you bring it towards this block and you see the Y lights up, but you want to put it in the X, so you drag it until it lights up on the X, then you release. And you see, it says go to X, pick random from negative 200 to positive 200, but we want the Y value to always be 151. So let's first save this and see what happens. So when you start the game, you see, at first it's here. Let's start the game again. Then it goes this side. Then it comes here. You see, it's always at the same height, but the apple is now coming from different locations. Okay, let me first pause. Has everyone understood that?
Yes.
Okay, so let's move on. So remember, we want the apple to keep falling, but we want it to fall up to somewhere here, and then once it reaches here, it's supposed to go to a different position and fall like that. When the apple to keep coming, it falls. If it's caught by the ball, still it goes back up and then comes down. So to help us with this, we're going to get another sprite. Remember, go to choose sprite, and we're going to get a sprite called line. It's here. So let's drag this line to come here to the bottom of the screen, somewhere here. And we can see that the line is a different color from the rest of the environment. So let's try to blend it in. Remember, we're under sprite line. Let's go to costumes for the line. So you tap inside the line, it highlights it. Then you go here to fill, because you want to change its color. So we want it to have a more brown color so that it blends in with this environment, because we don't want it to show so much. You can leave it in that original red color. It will just stand out so much. Yet we want it to be a bit more subtle. Okay. Then you press enter. Yeah. So you see it still shows, but not as much. So let's go back to the ball. We want the code for the ball. Okay, here we can see that the line is now interfering with the ball. So we want this line to be the ground, like the horizontal position. So let's shift the ball a little bit so that it's on top of the line, so that it just sits on the line. So its position is now -30. Or you don't have to change the position this much. I just want everything to look nice. And that's -133. Okay. So we have the line ready. Now let's go back to apple. Okay. So we want the apple to fall from this position and fall down. Then it goes back up and falls down. Okay. So we are going to go to control, and we say repeat. We want a repeat block. So you scroll down until repeat until. Remember, we want the apple to keep falling until it touches the line. Okay. So we are going to say repeat until. Then we go to sensing. Remember, we are in the apple. So let's get this first block, which says touching mouse pointer. So we press on this small arrow and say repeat until touching line. We choose line. So we want the apple to keep falling until it touches the line. Now remember, I told you, if we are going up vertically, that's positive. If we are coming down, that's negative. So we want the apple to keep falling down until it touches the line. So we are going to go to motion, and then we choose the block that is change Y by, and we put it here. So let's say change Y by -10. So what we have done here is we want the apple's position to keep changing by Y -10, to keep falling until it touches the line. Okay. So let's first put this here. And we save. Make sure you always save your work. So let's try it out and see. The apple. Did you see what we did there? It started from a certain position and kept. We use change Y by -10 so that it doesn't, as it falls, it doesn't go this side and this side. its x position, remember x is the horizontal position, was in the same place and it just kept falling. It was only the y position that was changing, and the moment it touched the line like this, it stopped. Let me do that again and you see. And now, have you noticed that it came from a different position? Because we said pick random for the x value, right? Let me see. Now it came from this side. When you press again, it comes from a different position. Yes. Now, once we have done that, we don't want the apple to only fall once and stop. Like you see what it's doing now. It just comes once and stops. We want the apple to keep falling. So that means in the language of Scratch, we want it to repeat this action of falling. We want it to repeat forever. So we're going to go to Control and we say forever, repeat until touching line. We save. Let's first see what happens now. So what we have done now, it keeps falling and coming back, falling and coming back, but it's now happening so fast that we can't see it. That means we need some modifications. So I hope everything is fine up to this moment. We are going to build up on this. So we want to check, we have showed how the apple is going to keep falling. So once it touches the line, we want it to go back up, right? So we want it to go back up to a different position, but on the same or at the same height. So let's go to this block, okay? We remove it. You just drag and drop at a different location. That's how you move these blocks. Then, if you're using your mouse, you right click and it will show you duplicate. Remember, to duplicate is to create another copy of something. So we say duplicate so that we don't have to we don't have to go back this side and get the code and everything. So let's put it under here. Okay, hold on, let me show you. Then we put this one back. I hope you're seeing what duplicating is. It's not anything complex. It's just me saving time by duplicating this code. Other than going back, you get go to X position, you get the coordinates again, then you get the pick random also. You could just duplicate this code. So let's join this back. Remember, these are blocks. You can always remove them and put them back. So let's save this and see what happens.
I can't hear you.
So is anyone else experiencing the same problem? Can you hear me? Okay, let me continue. If my voice is not clear and it's so many people, then you tell me. But if it's only one person, then that means their internet connection is not very stable. But as I say, don't worry, this is being recorded. Okay, so let's continue. So here, let's see what we have achieved so far. We said we want the up. First of all, when the flag is clicked, we want the apple to go to Y, to go up at a random position, pick random. So it will either be here or here or here. Then we want it to keep falling, for its Y position to keep changing by -10. But that should happen until it reaches the ground. Then we said, when repeat until touching line. So after it finishes touching the line, our next command was go back to this position. So it goes back up. Once it touches the line here, it goes back up at the same height, but we said pick random. So it will go back up, but not at the same X position. It could go back up to somewhere here or to somewhere here. So let's see what's happening. We have achieved that. Okay, before I continue, does anyone have a question?
Yeah, my question is, do we have to like make a game like similar to that, or we can make a game like what we want to make?
You can make any type of game that you want, but I just use this game so that I teach you about variables and how to move the sprites and the different motions.
So
Yes,
I can
but
make like an animation or anything you feel comfortable with.
yes, once you learn these skills, our mission is just to teach you these basic skills.
Okay.
Does anyone else have a question? Okay, let's continue. So we have now achieved the apple falling from different positions, but you can see that when the apple touches the ball, it still continues down. You see, it continues down, but logically, when an apple reaches the ball, it's supposed to stop. It can't go through the ball. So that's what we're going to work on next. You see here, because the whole idea is us collecting these apples, yes? So let's code how to stop the apple once it reaches the ball. So that it reaches the ball, it goes back up instead of continuing to the ground, because that won't be logical. An apple can't go through the ball unless it has a hole. But in this case, it has no hole. So we want it, once it reaches here, it goes back up. Okay. So in this repeat until touching line, we're supposed to change y by -10. But now we are saying, let's use an if-then block. And we go to sensing, and we get if touching. Then we put it there. So we go to this small arrow, and we say if touching the ball. So if touching the ball, we want it to go back up. Okay? So if touching the ball, we're going to say, oh, we need to duplicate this again. Let me just create a copy of this and keep it some. Oh, let's put this back here. Then we keep this somewhere here and duplicate it again. Put it here. We want that if the apple touches the ball, it goes back up, but at a different location. That's why we still have the pick random here. So we are saying if, you can read here, if touching ball, then go to a random X position, but at the same height, go back up to the trees at a different position. So we are going to put this under the repeat until block, under this block here. That's the good thing about Scratch. You can write the code for the different parts at different times, and you just keep adding it there and it won't be affected. So we are going to go to repeat. We're saying repeat until touching the line. What do you want the apple to repeat while touching the line? We want it to keep changing y by -10. But now we are saying on its way as it's falling, if it touches the ball, so we put, you see, you drag it, then you wait for the appropriate spot and change y by 10, okay? Then you drop it there. So we are saying change y by repeat until touching line. What do you want to repeat until touching line? You change y by -10. But on the way, if you touch the ball, then you go back up. Then the process continues. I hope you've understood that. So let's save and see what happens. So let's see what happens. See? Did you see that once it touches the ball, it doesn't continue to the ground, it just goes back up. Okay, so you see it was as easy as that. That's why Scratch is so fun. You just have to know what you want to do and it will work out. So we're almost done, but remember we want to control this game a little bit more. We want you to, like, whenever you get an apple in your ball, you want to gain a point, right? You want the score to change by 1. Like whenever the apple touches the ball, you want the score to change by 1. And remember, we also have timer. Most of the games you play are timed. You can have like 30 seconds to achieve something. That's what we are calling a timer here. So let's start with the score here. So remember, a score is a variable. A variable just means a box where you keep something. Like here, the score is going to be a box that keeps for us our points, so that you know what you've scored at the end of the game. Okay. So let's go to, remember, you only score if the apple touches the ball. So our instruction is going to be here under if touching ball. Before it goes back up, we want the score to first change by 1. So you go back to variables. But remember, at the start, you want the score to be 0 so that it keeps increasing. So you're supposed to first get this block that says set my variable to 0. Then you bring it here. You can put it here or here. It doesn't really matter. Let's just put it here. My variable is just the default. But remember, we named our variable score. So you touch on this tiny arrow and then you choose score. So you're supposed to set score to 0. So that at the start you have 0 points. Then here we have change my variable by, show my variable, hide my variable. So we want score to change by 1, okay? So we take this that says change my variable by 1. And where do we want to put it? We want to put it under this block so that if it touches the ball, you change the score to 1. Not to 1, but by 1. So that it keeps increasing. So we go here and say we want score to be the one changing by 1. I hope that is clear. You can change this to any number of points, by 2 or by 3. It's up to you to change this. You don't have to get 1. So let's save this and see what happens. So let's play our game. Did you see? The score is changing. Whenever it touches the apple doesn't continue up to down. It stops, but so you see our score was 0, but now it's 9. So if you want a person using your game to play forever, if you don't want to limit them, then you can just remove the timer. But then they will have to play forever. they'll only stop the game if they're tired. But now we want to give them a time limit. So that's why we put the timer here. Did you notice that I'm the one who stopped the game by pressing, oh, this flag means go, and then this button means stop. So if you're playing your game, you do this and keep playing it. And you can see here that my ball is moving way too slowly because I only put 10 steps. But if you want it to move faster, you can put like 20 steps or 30. Okay, so it's going to keep happening. And if you want it to stop, you go here and you tap on stop and it stops the game. But then we don't want to be the ones doing that. We want the computer to do that for us. Let me first get my charger and okay, we can continue now. So you saw how we made the score to be an actual value here. So you go through the same thing for the timer. Because these are all variables, I told you a variable is a box that stores your data or your information. So we go back to set my variable. For variables, you're supposed to set them before the game starts, before you enter the forever block. Because if you set score to 0 and you put it somewhere inside here, it will keep changing. Like whenever you get 1 point, if this set score to 0 is inside this loop, it will take it back to 0. So your score here won't change. That's why you're supposed to put all these variables. You're supposed to set them before the game starts. That's why it's up here right before the forever block. So we want to set, in this case, we want timer. But we don't want to set it to 0. How many seconds do we want? Oh, and the timer is usually in terms of seconds. So if you want to put the hours, you have to convert them to seconds first. So for the start, let's give it 5 seconds. I put 5 because it's a short time and we want it just for demonstration, but you can put more time. And now we have set the timer to 5. So we want the timer to keep changing, right? Until it's 0, because that's how a timer works. It starts at some value and goes down to 0. So we're going to do that by okay, here, since this code might be very bulky and it will confuse you. So let's put the timer with a different sprite. Okay, look, let's go with the ball of 9 to 0. So here my variable we want timer and we set it to 5. I'll put it this side just so that the other code is not so bulky, but you can put it under any code. Remember when we're setting these variables, we say make it available for all the sprites. So even though you put it under line or under apple or under ball, it will still do the same. But for score specifically, we put it under apple because we needed this aspect of if the apple is touching ball. But now the timer doesn't really matter. It just has to keep changing the time. So when flag clicked, set timer to 5. Then we're going to say repeat until. There's a repeat until block. We're going to say repeat until. We want to repeat until the timer is 0. Okay, so we're going to go to operators and choose the one which is equal to. This is equal to this. And we put it here. So we want to repeat until timer is equal to 0. And where are we going to get timer from? We're going to go back to my variables. And you see here we have timer. So you drag and drop it into this. And then you bring this block here. Repeat until timer is equal to 0. So what do we want to repeat? We go to ensure. We want to first wait 1 second. Then after waiting 1 second, we want to change timer by. Now in this case, we don't want it to change by 1. We want it to change by -1. It's like you're subtracting. We had 5 initially. You wait for 1 second, then you say 5 minus 1. Then it becomes 4 seconds. Then it goes back. It's now 4. It will come, it waits 1 second, then it subtracts 1, it becomes 3, like that. And this will go on until timer is equal to 0. So we put this block here. So when flag clicked, we want to set timer to 5, then repeat until timer is equal to 0. What do we want to repeat? We want to wait for 1 second, and then after 1 second, we change timer by -1. That's how you keep time in Scratch. You have to code everything, but initially it works out. So what do we want to happen when the timer reaches 0? We want everything to stop. We want the game to stop. So we go to show. And then we get this block that says stop all. Okay? I hope you've understood this block. So let's save and see what happens. So start. Okay. See the timer keeps changing. You see. Even though I moved my ball, the apple is not falling anymore. Because the timer has reached 0, your time is out. And I had a score of 1. That's what happened. So let's give it some more time. Let's change. If I set timer to, let's give it 10 seconds. Then we save. Always save your work. Remember to always save your work. Okay? So let's see. We now have 10 seconds. To be very fast. Oh my god, these apples come out now. Got a score of 6, and now the timer is 0. And that's how you write the code for the patching game. So in the next lesson, we'll make it a little bit harder. Okay, before I show you the demo for the harder game, does anyone have a question? Yes, Hailey?
When I went to operators, I could not find the block that you were using.
Miss, I think you're muted.
I asked that does anyone have a question before I can continue? Okay, so let me show you what we are going to be working on next week. How we are going to make this
Miss,
game harder.
I have a question.
Yes, please.
When exactly will this class end?
This exact, do you mean today's class?
Yeah, today's class. What time do what time do classes usually end?
We're done. I'm just going to show you next week, how next week's class is going to look like, then we'll be done. It's supposed to end at 10:10 and it's exactly 10:10. Okay, so let me show you what we're going to work on next week. Remember to always save your work. Or if you want to see your projects, you see here. Next week, we're going to work on adding more sprites and making it a bit more challenging. But the code is basically the same. So you see here, I have a ball sprite, I have a ground, I have apple, I have a strawberry, and I have a bat. So in this case, a bat is the bad guy. Once it enters your ball, you lose points. So let me show you how that works. Okay. This is a bit harder. I'm going to intentionally get a bat. You see that once the bat enters the ball, my score reduces. I lose points. So this is what we are going to work on next week. And you can see that my fruits are now falling at a faster pace. You have to work really hard to keep up. You have to keep avoiding the bat. Do you notice that my score keeps going up and then it comes down? It's because whenever I get the bat into my ball, I lose points. 51, then back to 48. Yeah. Then after I play the game, did you notice that all the other sprites disappeared? And then I got this message that says, thank you for playing. You have reached the end. So that's what we're going to work on next week. Okay, before I can end this lesson, does anyone have a question? Remember, you're going to watch, you're going to be given this recording and you'll be able to rewatch everything and write the code on your own. If you find any problem, you can always send me a message on WhatsApp. I'm always available and I'll help you out. You can also ask any of the other tutors. If you want to see your current work, you can either go here and say my stuff, and it will show you your current projects, what you've done so far. So mine is the catching game. So you say see inside, and then it takes you back to your project. And this is what we have done so far. Right now, I'm sure all of you can write the code for this game. And remember, you can always change the backdrop. You could put baseball or Arctic or bedroom or castle. There are so many backdrops. And you can also choose your own sprite. You don't have to have these. If you say these are boring, you could use any of the other sprites.
Can you make an animation for its Does it have to be?
For now, I'm teaching you how to write code for a game. But once you have the skills, you can get the animation, because right now you know how to move the sprites around. You know how to make them stop. If you wanted to dance forever, you can do that. You can code whatever you want to. Yes?
What if some of us like have already used Scratch and aren't like that? We are like a more advanced. You understand more people.
If you're more advanced, then you have to wait a bit so that everyone is at a more advanced level, then we'll teach harder material. Because right now we can't go straight to the hard work, we have to go from the basics. Let's see an example of an animation. It's not really an animation. It's this code that I have.
Could be like a story or something.
Yeah, you can create a story. I have, among my code, I have stories. This is an example of a boy just randomly dancing all over the stage. And you can put sounds if you want. Then the other code that I have, Martha showed you the underwater game. I have one which
I was
has a
trying
dance.
to make the game like similar to the Space Shooter game. I was having a bit of like some trouble doing it.
If you need help with the Space Shooter game, please inbox Martha on WhatsApp, or you can tell me after the lesson.
Okay.
Yeah, so I made this like a dancing game for the cat, and you see that cat can change colors. Okay, so that's it. If no one has questions about this game, then I think I'm done with today's lecture. Thank you so much for attending. I hope I've been clear enough. If you have any criticism or you want to advise me on something, please inbox me on WhatsApp. If you have any questions, please inbox me on WhatsApp. Yes, so this session is done. Thank you so much and have a nice day.
Bye. See you. See you later.
Bye.
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 Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.
What's happening? Uzulima, what's happening? Uzulima, Stop it! Stop it! I got pin you at the last. You pinned. Stop it! You pinned. See, someone's wearing the same underwear as you. Someone's actually. My thing has been on say someone has the same underwear as me. Go away.